The origins of Cobham Bus Museum date back to 1966. Bus preservation was in its infancy, although a handful of pre-war vehicles had already been saved by private individuals. But mindful that a whole generation of buses were in danger of total extinction, and aware of the increasing number of individuals wishing to save vehicles, the late Alan Orme and a small group of enthusiasts began to raise funds with a view to securing premises whereby garaging and other facilities could be made available to ease the otherwise difficult plight of the bus preservationist. The now world-famous Cobham site was acquired in 1972, and the rest, as they say, is history. Home to some 40 vehicles, as well as the 400 members of the London Bus Preservation Trust, the collection represents the widest selection of ex-London Transport motor buses in the world, dating from 1925 to 1973. Some of these are sole survivors from once numerous classes and are therefore quite unique.
This, in a lot of respects, I mean, obviously its fuel consumption isn't particularly up to date. No. But on the other end, in that department, it does have compensation because it goes extremely well. Surprising how much heat they generate, even though they are only 12 volt, I think.
In addition, within the Trust membership are owned a further 200 preserved buses and coaches, many of which visit the museum for maintenance, carried out either by their owners or by the highly skilled team of volunteers at Cobham. A good example can be seen here in the shape of RM254, without doubt one of the finest preserved buses on the rally circuit, thanks to much help from members of the Trust. The 1990s have seen Cobham Bus Museum go from strength to strength, thanks to the considerable efforts of the members, ably led by Chairman Peter Plummer. Always a key event in the rally calendar, the the annual Cobham Bus Museum Open Day, held each April, has enjoyed successive record attendances in 1993, 94 and 95, and in view of the museum's increased profile, for the 1995 season, a series of additional display days took place. These proved to be a great success, so much so that for the final one on October 22nd, visitors were in for something of a treat. Enter those most active of preservationists, the RF owners, who will use any excuse to have a get-together. Thus, Kingston Operating Day was born, chosen in view of the town's proximity to Cobham Bus Museum, but also in light of the news that well-known Clarence Street bus station was soon to be demolished. RFs, of course, were to dominate the day, running as they did on Route 215, but there were also guest appearances made by several of Cobham's star exhibits during the day. Seen here is TD95, which was appropriately delivered new to Kingston Garage in 1949. This Leyland Tiger PS1 continued in service until October 1962, when it passed to a group of students who used it on several lengthy European tours. TD95 arrived at Cobham in 1978 and was the first vehicle to be fully restored in-house by museum volunteers. It has since won numerous trophies and is actively rallied. 3 other man-engine bodied TDs are known to survive, all of which are with Cobham members. T31 was purchased by the Trust in 1995 and is believed to have been the first bus to enter private preservation way back in 1956. Fully restored to its original general livery with rear entrance and petrol engine, it entered service in 1929 and, like TD95, did a stint at Kingston. Restoration of this superb AEC Regal was completed in 1979, and having arrived at Cobham, it is now enjoying a very active retirement. Q83 also made a welcome appearance and is one of only 2 such survivors. Built in 1935, this was AEC's first attempt in maximising passenger carrying capacity by moving the engine away from the front to an underfloor position on the offside behind the front axle, a forerunner therefore of the concept so successfully applied to the RF. Q83 would have passed through Kingston on Green Line work during the late 1930s and early 1940s, although the bulk of its service days were spent on country area bus routes until its withdrawal in 1953. It entered preservation in 1966. But of the many classes of vehicle which have been linked with Kingston over the years, it is the RF which is perhaps best remembered, thanks to 3 decades of service in the town. Seen here is much rallied RF 453 in the standard one-man operated livery carried by the majority of central area RFs in later years. RF 534 is easily identifiable, being the only actively preserved example to carry the white roundel livery, as did a handful of the final survivors between 1977 and 1979. Having been withdrawn from service in 1977, RF 534 went on to serve a scout group for a further 15 years, until its rescue in 1992 for preservation. A long-serving Kingston bus, its rapid return to the rally scene bears testimony to the help and expertise available to members at Cobham Bus Museum. Three more RFs were scheduled for service on the Cobham to Kingston 215 service, those being RF 366, rare crew operated RF 433 and country area RF 643, the latter of which had actually been loaned to Kingston Garage during its long service career. But such was the demand to travel on these much loved veterans that RFs 10, 518 and 672 were also drafted into service, the latter two making very rare passenger carrying appearances. Several of the Trust fleet were to make unscheduled runs on the 215 during the day, much to the delight of enthusiasts who had turned out in their droves to support Cobham. equally busy scenes back at the museum, where numerous visiting vehicles and a large crowd of spectators had combined to create scenes approaching the chaos of open day. As usual, RT 3491 and its crew were doing Stirling service running on Route 300, which connected the museum with Weybridge Station and town. Inside, the many stallholders were doing brisk business, whilst other museum volunteers were getting on with restoration projects. River Thames, nearby Bushy and Richmond parks, and Saturday shopping trips to the Bentall store are perhaps what most people remember about Kingston. But it is the Clarence Street bus station which holds the most memories for transport fans. Opened in 1922 with garage to the rear, many famous classes have operated from the site, although single-deckers were always most numerous, owing to the large number of low bridges in the area. The first RFs arrived late in 1952 on Route 213 from Sutton Garage. Kingston did not receive its own allocation until 1959, but by 1962 RFs were running all Kingston single-deck routes, and in the case of routes 218 and 219, they continued to do so until March 1979, when the last central area RFs were withdrawn from service. RFs have tended to be somewhat overshadowed by RTs and RMs, which are generally considered to be the archetypal London buses, but in single-deck terms, the RFs were every bit as successful and arguably an even stronger design. Their owners certainly think so. Around 120 are known to still survive, which is a remarkable statistic. 80 of these are in preservation, of which 50 are with Cobham members. In addition, UMP 227, the AEC Regal 4, evaluated by London Transport in 1950, is also resident at Cobham, albeit a long-term restoration project, whilst several of the BEA deck-and-a-half airport coaches also survive. nocturnal running, the museum was to remain open well into the hours of darkness, and this gave visitors a rare opportunity to travel on and film some of Cobham's fleet in night action. A fitting finale to a day which had started off being a bit of fun for RF owners, but which ended up turning into one of the most memorable and well-attended events of the 1995 season. Proof beyond doubt of people's affection for Cobham Bus Museum, and indeed for London Transport's finest ever single-decker bus, the RF. Thanks to the continued efforts of the London Bus Preservation Trust, both Cobham Bus Museum and RFs have a secure future for many years to come, and the promise of similar such events in due course.